So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be going through manual advertising and take you through everything that you need to know about manual ads. I have produced a video like this similar on my channel, where it's more of a beginner's guide to ads. We're just going through the auto ad side of things. This is going to be looking at manual ads and is a much better way of scaling your Amazon KDP advertising. Before we jump into the actual video itself, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who supported the previous video, where I talked through everything that's gone on with my KDP account and kind of the content you can expect going forward. As I said in that video, I will still be producing Amazon KDP content as you're used to on this channel. And this video is an example of that. This is the sort of thing you're still going to be able to see from this channel, as well as other things that we're going to be jumping into. But I did just want to say thank you very much before we started this video, because the support was overwhelmingly positive. And I'm really, really grateful for all of you understanding the situation that I found myself in. But for this video, manual advertising, I'm going to take you through everything that you need to know for manual ads on KDP. So in terms of our agenda, what we're going to cover in this video, I've put together a fairly comprehensive batch of slides here. So we're going to work our way through slowly, and hopefully everything here makes a lot of sense. You might have to go back through a couple of times because there is a lot of content in this video, but hopefully it's going to be super valuable for you. And if you do want to know even more about your KDP ads or any part of your KDP business, you can check out both of my KDP online courses down in the description below. In KDP Mastery, I have an entire section dedicated to everything you need to know about all aspects of ads, but I'll leave that entirely up to you if that's something that you want to look into further. But in terms of the agenda for this video, we're going to start firstly with manual ads and what manual ads are compared to auto ads. So show it right back to the beginning. Anyone who's a complete beginner when it comes to Amazon ads, what is the difference between a manual ad and an auto ad? There are then two different types of manual ads, so mainly a keyword ad and also a product ad. So the next two sections beyond that are going to be going through keyword ads, so how to effectively use them for your KDP books, and then also how to effectively use product ads for your KDP books too. And then finally, based on all this information that we've kind of crossed in this video, I'm going to come up with the best manual strategy to use in my opinion. So hopefully that's going to be something that you're interested in if you have ended up clicking this video, and there should be loads of really valuable content for you in here too. So let's just jump straight into it. So first of all, manual ad versus auto ad. So when we're talking about auto ads essentially will just automatically show your book against certain products or search terms based on your book's data. So they'll therefore test lots of different products and search terms in order to find those that perform well. So basically, we set an auto ad up, and what it will do, it will look at your book's data. So look at your title, your subtitle, your description, and advertise your book against certain products on Amazon based on that data. So if you had a animal coloring book and you called it animal coloring book, Amazon will know based off that data roughly what products to advertise it against. And then we'll also look at things like your keyword data too, and see if there are any products that those keywords relate to that it can advertise against. It's very hands-off and very good if you are just starting out with your ads. So like I say, very hands-off. That's a really big benefit of having auto ads. The only issue with that is you don't have an awful lot of control. All you do is just set the ad up and then let it run and do its own thing. You're not specifically choosing exactly what products you're advertising against. The flip side, you then have manual ads. So these are ads that will show your book against products or search terms that you actually choose yourself, rather than relying on the Amazon algorithm and looking at your metadata and your book's data to find certain products for you. You're specifically finding the products yourself. So this basically allows you to be a lot more specific with your targeting, and if you have products or keywords that you already know convert well. The benefit of this, obviously you can get much better and much more granular targeting because you're fully in control of exactly what products you're advertising against. The only issue here is it's obviously more effort because you have to manually find the products yourself. So hopefully that explains a little bit more the differences between auto ads and manual ads, and why, in my opinion, there is definitely place for both auto and manual ads. It completely depends on your advertising strategy, your budgets, etc., etc. So what does this actually look like in practice? Now for this example, we're going to take this dinosaur coloring book for kids ages 3 to 6, and I'm going to show you the difference between the sort of search terms you're going to see for an auto ad versus a manual ad and the pros and cons of both. So if you had this book and you'd made an auto ad for it, Amazon would essentially read the title, the subtitle, the keywords, as I've mentioned already in this video, and try and find certain search terms to advertise that book against. So it might see that this is a dinosaur coloring book, and it might choose to advertise it against the phrase dinosaur coloring book for kids, kids coloring book, dinosaur activity book, because they're kind of all related to the search terms and the data that I'm assuming this book is going to have in its back end. On the flip side, if you do a manual ad, you can be a little bit more granular with what you're choosing to do here. So for example, you could target specifically the phrase dinosaur coloring books for 3 to 6 year olds, because that's ultimately exactly what your book is targeting. or something like easy dinosaur coloring book. Because it's for younger kids, I'm assuming it's going to be an easy coloring book. So you could target specifically the keyword easy dinosaur coloring book. And the big thing here, where it's a massive benefit for manual ads, is you can be much more specific, and actually you're wasting a lot less money than you would do with an auto ad. So for example here, the phrase kids coloring book and dinosaur activity book, you might think these are actually quite good keywords for you to be advertising against, but when you actually think about it, these really aren't specific at all. This could be a kids coloring book, or someone who searched for the term kids coloring book could actually be after something that's for girls. I'm not saying this book isn't for girls, but generally something more specifically for girls. It could be something for kids who are 7 to 10. It could be loads of different things that this keyword is just a little bit too broad for. But because you're using the auto ad and you don't have control over this, essentially you're going to be wasting a little bit of money on this, because not everyone who types in kids coloring book is actually in the market for this specific dinosaur coloring book. It's exactly the same thing here for this dinosaur activities book search terms. Yes, a coloring book technically is a type of activity book, but maybe they're looking for something a little bit more than just coloring. So maybe things like word searches, crosswords, dot to dots, as well as coloring pages, in which case this wouldn't be a great match for the book that we're actually advertising in. So you can kind of see the difference between how specific you can get with manual ads versus auto ads, and you can just be a lot more efficient with the money that you're spending, because ultimately in this example here, you're going to be spending money on kind of an audience that isn't actually after your book, which obviously is not what you want to be doing. But again, it's relatively minor, and it's not me saying auto ads shouldn't be used. It's just depending on your circumstances and what you're trying to get out of your advertising campaign. So moving on now to the different types of manual advertising that you can do with KDP. The first one is a keyword ad, and this type of ad allows you to only advertise your book around specific keywords. You therefore have full control of the search terms that your book shows up against, so kind of like I showed you in this example here. Now, there are 3 different ways that you can target a keyword with these ads. And you've probably seen these before if you have any sort of experience with keyword ads. You have a broad match, a phrase match, and also an exact match. Now, what do all 3 of these things do? Let's just take the example of the search term or the keyword dinosaur coloring book. So basically, a broad match is any related keyword that contains something from your target. So if this is our target for this specific example, because we've used a broad match type, it's going to match us with anything that contains something from our keyword target. So for example, cute dinosaur gift for boys is going to come up as a broad match because it has the word dinosaur in there. So that's kind of how this kind of targeting method works. Because it's called broad, it is obviously super broad and not as specific as you might want it to be, but it's really good for your book reach too. Again, there, dinosaur is the keyword that it's pulled out from here with the broad match. You then have phrase. So this is any related keyword that is specifically from your target. So for example, dinosaur coloring book, which is our actual keyword that we're targeting against, comes up in the phrase fun dinosaur coloring book for girls. You can see here, dinosaur coloring book, but it's also added on some extra words there too. So phrase is a little bit more specific than broad because the actual search term itself has to be included in the search phrase. But it's also going to add a couple of other words beyond there too. So it's a little bit more granular, but still relatively broad, and get you that good book reach too. And then the final one, which is obviously the most self-explanatory, is the exact match. And this is just basically only the exact keyword you have entered in will be targeted. So if your keyword is dinosaur coloring book under the exact match type, it's only going to show the phrase dinosaur coloring book. Whereas for phrase, it's going to include the phrase dinosaur coloring book amongst other words as well. And then if it was broad, it would include just any word from here along with other words too. You can start to see how specific you get when you're switching up between broad, phrase, and exact. So these manual keyword campaigns aren't just as simple as saying, oh, it's a manual keyword campaign. Sometimes you're going to have a manual keyword campaign focusing on broad and phrase terms, and you're also going to have some manual keyword campaigns focusing specifically on exact. Again, entirely depends on exactly what your strategy is, your budget is, and what you're trying to do with your book and your Amazon ad campaign. So a better visualization of what these exactly look like in terms of the keywords. So we've got here broad, phrase, and exact, and you can kind of see how keyword that's a bit of a mouthful. How keyword specificity changes as we go down. So if you're using a broad match type, you're going to get high exposure and impressions, and also discover new keywords. Because if you think you're just taking this dinosaur coloring book and it's going to get you loads of different variations of kind of similar search terms, because it's going to contain some words from your keyword search phrase. So dinosaur coloring book takes the word dinosaur and puts cute dinosaur gift for boys. This is not something you were specifically targeting initially, but it's actually found something brand new for you. So you are going to get much higher exposure and discover new keywords too. But similarly, like I mentioned about auto ads, it can be wasteful because you can potentially end up targeting keywords that aren't really related to your book, and people are going to be clicking it. You're going to be spending on those clicks, and it's probably not quite as specific as you'd want it to be. Moving down the funnel then, you can see here we've got phrase, and essentially it's kind of in between broad and exact. So again, you're still going to discover loads of more relevant search terms because it's taking phrases from your specific keyword search and adding words onto the beginning and the end of it. But again, you're kind of not doing either of the two here. So you're getting less impressions than a broad match, and you're also not getting quite as specific as an exact match. Again, I do still use phrase match types, so I'm not saying you shouldn't, but it's worth bearing in mind that it kind of sits in between both broad and exact in terms of its functionality. And then finally, exact, very, very specific, super granular targeting, very high potential return on investment because you can specifically only target search terms that you absolutely know convert into sales. So for this example here, dinosaur coloring book, if you know that exactly converts into sales, or let's just say this was dinosaur coloring book for blonde haired boys aged 3 to 4, that's so specific. But if you know that specifically converts to sales from previous data, you're going to want to exactly target that and not worry about anything to do with broad or phrase match types. Just double down and specifically target keywords that you know convert to sales. And that's exactly what exact match types are really, really useful for. And again, kind of on the flip side, as you'd expect, the only issue with this is you're not going to discover any new keywords with exact match types because, like I say, you're only targeting that specific match that you're already put in as a keyword for yourself. You're not kind of discovering any new additions or variations of that keyword that you would do if you use a broad match or a phrase match. So the next thing we're going to cover in this video is negative keywords. So we're still on that topic of manual keyword advertising, but negative keywords work kind of in the opposite way as exact match type keywords that we have just covered. So let's just say we had a book called Dinosaur Coloring Book. Negative keywords are essentially keywords that we want to tell Amazon not to show our book up against because they're just not relevant at all to our book. So let's just say if you were advertising the book Dinosaur Coloring Book, if this was in a manual ad, you could specifically tell Amazon not to show your book against the phrase dinosaur lunchbox. So if you had Dinosaur Coloring Book as a broad match types, because it contains the word dinosaur, it might show it up for something like dinosaur lunchbox, but because that's not relevant at all to our book, we want to tell Amazon specifically not to target this keyword. So all the rules that's going to implement are still going to be there, but it is also going to know that it's not going to advertise against a specific keyword. So dinosaur lunchbox in this example has absolutely nothing to do with our book, so therefore we don't want to be targeting against it. Adding negative keywords, you can see here in the box that shows when you are launching an Amazon ad campaign, allows us to still discover new keywords without wasting our money on irrelevant ones. So if you're creating your manual ad and you want to include some broad and phrase terms, but you know there are some specific search terms you really don't want your book to show up against, that's when you put them in this negative targeting box because you're just going to be wasting money on kind of phrases like this. Yes, you might have some off the top of your head when you start advertising your book, but throughout time, you're going to realize that your ad's actually showing up for some certain keywords that just really aren't converting for you. At that point, you would then go into your ad, edit it, and then add all of these keywords that aren't performing really well for you into this negative keyword targeting, and that's going to save you from wasting money on targeting against those. So negative keywords is a really powerful and useful part of manual keyword targeting. So next, I'm going to run you through manual products. So we've just gone through manual keywords and how you can specifically target certain keywords. This is basically exactly the same thing, but just for products. Now, this type of ad is actually a little bit more simple than the keyword side of things, and also allows you to advertise your book around specific products. So we're not looking at keywords or customer search terms anymore. We're just looking at specific products. So you'll have full control over the products that your book shows up against. So basically, if there is a book doing well that attracts a similar kind of audience to your book, you can show your book in front of them. So if you had another dinosaur coloring book that someone else had made that was really, really good and was getting loads and loads of sales, you could tell that from a very low BSR, you might want your book to show up against that book too, because the audience that are going to be interested in that book are also going to be really interested in yours. So that's kind of the whole point of product ads, is trying to steal some traffic away from other books that are performing really well. So again, let's just say, for example, this was a book that you wanted to advertise against. It's very similar to ours. It's got 4.6 average rating from 123 reviews. So it's clearly selling really well. We're going to want to advertise our book against this. So when you did a product ad, if we added this as a target that we want to advertise against, what a customer's going to see when they land on this page is this book that they've actually clicked on, but below that you're going to see all of these products related to this item, and this is what we're paying for. We're paying for our book to be shown in front of an audience that is also after a similar book to this one here that they've already clicked on. So as you can see, it just kind of gets your book extra exposure, and you can be very specific with what you're targeting your book against. So in terms of a little bit more detail, similarly to keyword ads, you can target a manual product in a specific way. You can target individual products, which, as it kind of says in the tin, is targeting a specific product only, so just specifically this book here. Or you can do expanded products, which is basically that broad and phrase version when it comes to products, targeting a number of products that are related to the one you've chosen. So you could basically target this book here, and you can target as an individual product. So basically tell Amazon, only advertise my book specifically against this one. Or you can choose to go for the expanded products option, which basically says to Amazon, yes, target this book, but also show it up against other books that kind of relate to this one too. So maybe it might show up against this one and this one as well as this initial one you're actually choosing to target against. So it's just a broader way of targeting different products from one that's also kind of similar to yours. And then finally, you have categories. So targeting books in specific book categories. So you can target not just a specific type of book or types of books. You can target any book that's in the category coloring book for kids. That's much more broad, but again, if you want to improve your reach and kind of discover new potential products to advertise against in terms of an exact match or an individual product match in this case, then categories can be a good way to explore. But generally speaking, I would advise just sticking to individual products because you have full control over exactly what you're advertising against. If someone is clicking on this book, they just are going to be interested in the same book that you've got because it's a very similar audience. Let's just say, for example, here, the ages were the same. They're just going to be exactly the same audience that you're trying to attract. So you don't need any data to show that they're going to be similar. And you know you're only specifically targeting this and not wasting money on any other books. But again, ultimately, it's entirely up to you and what you want to do with your advertising strategy. So with that in mind, you're probably thinking at this stage, which of these manual ads is best to use? You've not only just got product and also keyword ads, but within keywords, you've got phrase matches, broad matches, exact matches, product ads, you've got individuals, you've got categories, and you've got broader matches. Which one of these is the best to use? Now, to be honest, I'm being completely transparent. There is no simple answer. It all depends on your book, your competition, your budget, your advertising goals, etc., etc. It's not just a one size fits all. It is all a case by case basis. From experience, some books will just perform better from product ads and some better with keyword ads. It's very difficult to understand which side of the fence your book is going to sit on. So sometimes you just have to try both and kind of work it out for yourself as you go along. But generally speaking, don't expect any book to perform really well with keyword ads and any book to perform well with product ads. Sometimes some just don't do well with keywords or products. It completely depends on the book. And like I say, all of these factors here as well. Now, as much as there's no kind of hard and fast rule for which strategy to use, I have just kind of put together this very foundational level kind of backbone of any sort of keyword or product manual ad strategy. You can kind of tinker with it based on your circumstances, how much budget you have, what your goal is. But these are general rules that I would stick to when it comes to creating your very own strategy. And they are as follows. So in terms of keyword ads, I would use broad and phrase targeting when A, you just want to increase your book's exposure to potentially relevant customers, and B, you want to discover new and specific keywords that your audience are searching for. So it's all about discoverability, increasing your book's exposure and trying to find potentially new profitable keywords that you can eventually target with an exact match type. On the flip side then, I would then use exact targeting when you want to rank for a specific search term only. You're not worried about kind of finding any new keywords. You just want to specifically double down on a keyword that you know converts well to sales. So either because it's competitive organically and or you know that book converts well. So let's just say the phrase dinosaur coloring book for kids. That's going to be super competitive, but if you want to rank at the top of the search page, it's very unlikely you're going to rank there organically. But what you can do is just use that as an exact search term. So every now and then you will rank at the top of the search page. It will just come in the form of an advertising placement rather than an organic placement. And then in terms of product targeting, I would use category targeting with your products when you just want to increase your book's exposure to potentially relevant customers. Because if your book is a dinosaur coloring book and you're targeting the category coloring books for kids, yes, you are potentially going to waste some money on some kind of irrelevant matches, but you are also going to potentially show your book to new customers who didn't actually really think they wanted your book, but having seen it are actually really interested and then might go ahead and buy. So these aren't going to be the most profitable ads because it's very, very broad, but it's good to increase your book's exposure. But over time, you kind of bring this in and be a lot more specific and also more efficient, therefore, with your targeting. I'll then use exact targeting when you have found some books that are similar to yours and performing extremely well. So if you have you're publishing in a new niche and there are some books that are doing really well in that niche, you can literally target those books in an advertising campaign with your similar book that you know is hopefully a better quality, maybe a better price, and also going to be appealing to anyone who's already looking on those really good performing books. You can kind of steal some of their traffic and sell products that way through exact targeting with your product manual ad. As I said, this allows you to steal traffic from these books and can be a really useful and really profitable strategy. I have actually covered this in a lot more detail in an earlier video, so if you want to check that out, go ahead and look on my channel and you can see the video there for yourself, but I won't go into too much detail there because you've already covered quite a lot in this video. And all of this ultimately comes down to this idea of granularity. In an ideal world, the more granular you can be with your specific targeting, the better. If you can have loads of different keywords that you absolutely know for sure convert to sales, all you want to be doing is just exactly matching those and targeting as many of those as possible. And in a similar light to your product ad, so if you have loads of books that you know convert well to sales, you don't want to be worrying about advertising against categories or kind of broad matches. You just want to specifically double down on exactly what you know sells well. The only problem with this is in reality, it's very hard to build up that list without having to kind of go through these kind of ways first. So initially you are going to have to be a little bit more broad, a little bit less granular when it comes to your advertising strategy. But over time, as you get more and more data, you're going to slowly work out what books your book performs well against and also what keywords it performs well against. And the ultimate goal of this is super levels of granularity, exact matches for products and keywords that you know convert to sales. Now, I mentioned earlier in this video that I covered a whole section on my KDP Mastery course completely dedicated to Amazon ads. Manual ads are extremely complex, and what I've covered in this video is actually relatively surface level. You might think there's a lot of information I've covered in here, and to be fair, there has been, but in terms of what you can actually do with manual ads, this is relatively basic information and relatively surface level detail. If you do want to understand even more level of detail when it comes to Amazon ads and exactly how I set up my advertising strategies, then you can check out KDP Mastery. The link will be down in the description below. And you can see here some of the results that I've got from advertising myself. So in my lifetime, I've spent just under £20,000 on my Amazon ads and generated just under £70,000 worth of sales. So a really profitable set of advertising campaigns. So you can see here, these are some pretty big numbers when it comes to advertising. So if you are going to be advertising on KDP and want to take it seriously, I massively recommend understanding exactly how ads operate. And that's what you can expect to find in this section of my KDP Mastery course. You can see here, I've spent £20,000, so that's not £20,000 you want to be wasting. Once you know exactly what you're doing with ads, it can be really, really profitable for you. But if you don't know what you're doing, it can be extremely risky. So I recommend massively understanding exactly what you need to know about advertising. And you can see all of that in my KDP Mastery course if you want to go an extra level of detail from this video. But in summary for what we've covered here, in terms of manual ads, what do they do? Number one, just better targeting. With manual ads, you can choose exactly what keywords and products to target your book against. You have different match types, so there are a number of different match types you can use with your manual ads. I'm not saying any is better than the other. It all depends on your circumstances, your competition, your budget, your strategy. All of those basically determine which match type would be best for you. But I've covered exactly how those factors might interact with your decision in this video. And then finally, strategy. Now, the overall goal of your advertising will ultimately determine exactly what strategy is best for you. One thing I really want to stress here is don't be afraid to lose a bit of money to learn what works and what doesn't. Advertising is a whole nother game of KDP because you're not just competing against other KDP authors, you're also competing against any seller on Amazon. So don't be afraid to learn what works and what doesn't. You might have to lose a bit of money to do that, but ultimately if you're looking at it in terms of a long-term goal, getting all this information and all this experience and learning exactly how ads work can be super profitable, because if you can get them right, like I have done in my experience, you can make a heck of a lot of money from advertising on Amazon. And manual ads basically sit right at the heart of that, because like I say, you can just be so much more specific with your targeting than you can be with auto ads. That is where the real money is made. So that is it in terms of manual advertising on KDP for beginners. If you did enjoy this video, then please do leave a like. And if you have any questions about absolutely anything I've covered in this video, please do let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll be more than happy to help you out or elaborate a little bit more on some of the things I've covered. As I've said, this can be a little bit confusing, so maybe go through and watch this a couple of times and really digest the information that I've covered. But like I say, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.